Hey, it's Dino, and today I want to talk to you about Apigeelint. If you're using Apigee, you should be using Apigeelint. What is Apigeelint? It's a tool that you can run from the command line that performs a static code analysis for your Apigee proxy configurations and configurations in shared flow bundles. It encourages you to use best practices and to avoid anti-patterns that we've identified over the course of many years of using Apigee. This is a tool that is based on Node and NPM. So those are the prerequisites. And it's really easy to use if you've got an exploded proxy bundle. The structure of it is it's got a series of checks that it performs, configured as plugins to the tool. And for each one of those, if it finds a problem in your API proxy configuration, it'll just log a warning or an error if it's a more serious problem. And you can see lots and lots of different checks that it performs. This has been in use for a long time. It's a really interesting tool to run as you develop things or as part of your CI/CD pipeline. That's something that you can give a try to. This is an open source tool supported by Apigee experts, usually customer engineers. And I want to show you a little demonstration for how to use it. So I'm going to flip over to my terminal. It does require Node and NPM, so let's check my Node version. That's going to be good enough. And NPM, I got that 2. So that should be sufficient. If you don't have those things, you're going to need to get them. Little commercial message. You can use a Google Cloud Shell, which will give you a VM running in the cloud that has those 2 things and a number of other utilities already pre-configured in them. But of course, you can run this on your own workstation too. Linux, Windows, Mac OS, all of those should work. All right, so I've got my prerequisites. How do I get it? NPM install Apigeelint. It's as easy as that. This is going to be installed locally in the local directory. Now, if you want it to be installed globally, you would need to run npm install with a -g option. I didn't want that just for the purposes of this demonstration. Just wanted it to be installed locally. But you can certainly do that, and the README provided with Apigeelint gives you more information on that. So I've got Apigeelint locally. Now to run it, it would be node modules apigeelint cli.js, and I can get some help on that tool. So if you ever are not clear on what the options are, you can certainly do that. The key way you're going to specify the API proxy to analyze is via the directory path that points to the API proxy directory. So I've got some examples here, and I'll run one now. Let's see. I want to run node. And I'll specify the source for the thing that I want to analyze as my first directory. And it has to include that API proxy suffix. So what am I going to see? Well, the findings are delivered in a JSON format. So this is readable by a machine. You could parse that. If I want to kind of get a better view of what that is, I can run it through JQ, and I can see there are a number of different files that are analyzed. Not all of them have warnings or errors, but here's a couple warnings on the trust store in the target endpoint, and that the target endpoint is not using a target server. So that's just an example. If you want something a little more human-friendly for readability, you can specify a different formatter. So let's take off the JQ, and we'll tell Apigeelint to use a text table formatting, which is a little easier on my eyes anyway. And I see the same warnings, just formatted differently. The most interesting thing for me is, I'm not really concerned too much about these. So Apigeelint has a nice way to exclude those. Here's the rule ID that was flagged for each of those warnings. I don't really care about the trust store at this time, and I don't really care about this target endpoint warning. So I maybe want to disable that. So how could I do that? There's another option in Apigeelint that allows you to exclude certain rules. TD002 and TD004 were those 2 rules that flagged. So I can exclude those, and now I only see the 2 warnings that were not those. These are both warnings about unattached policies. So we've all had this problem where we define an API proxy and put a policy in there but forget to attach it, or we detach it thinking we no longer need this thing, but we forget to remove it. So this is Apigeelint warning you that, hey, you've got this thing. It's not going to prevent your API proxy from running, but it's probably unnecessary to have these policies sitting in there that you're not referencing. They can never be used. So that's a little warning that comes out of Apigeelint. By the way, there are other formatting options as well in Apigeelint, and to get a list of them, you can run Apigeelint with the -list option. So that'll tell you all the different plugins that Apigeelint will run, as well as the output formatters. So for example, if you want to use, we looked at table. I think we can also look at, let's say, Visual Studio. That's a convention, a formatting convention. So I can put that in, and the error warnings or the errors come out looking like that. Lots of other options. I think one of these ought to be appropriate for you. Code frame. There's check style, which gives you an XML format. Lots of other options. Okay. For the rest of these demonstrations, I think I'm going to use the table format. So let's try the next one. We looked at unattached policies. We know how to fix that, either remove the policies or attach them. Here's one where I saw this at a customer. They had API proxies with resources of a particular type, either XSD or XSL resources that are just not referenced by any policy. So these resources are probably, it's a warning. Again, it's not going to cause your API proxy to not run, but it's kind of sloppy to have unattached resources in an API proxy. You probably want to fix that. We can continue with more examples here. So that's number 2. Another one that's pretty common is a target that is defined in the API proxy that is not referenced. So each target endpoint needs to be reachable via a route rule in one of the proxy endpoints. In this case, the analyzer, the plugin, looked at all the proxy endpoints and found that this target that exists in the bundle is not referenced anywhere. So you probably want to remove that. Again, it's a warning. It's not going to cause a problem, but it might be an error on your part. So that's another example. Let's see. We can go through some more. I've got another unreferenced or unreachable flow. Oops, that's the wrong directory. I should be doing API proxy. And it's telling me, oh, there are too many unconditional flow elements. What is that all about? Well, it gives me the line number and the column. So let me open that file in my editor. Okay, and the line was line 65 and column 5. So this is unreachable. Why? Well, in the proxy endpoint and the target endpoint, you can have flows. You can have one or more flows. All but one of them should have a condition. The first flow whose condition matches, or evaluates to true, I should say, will execute. And all subsequent flows will be disregarded. Those conditions won't even be evaluated. So think of it like maybe like a switch statement or a cascaded if statement. So if this condition evaluates true, then we'll evaluate flow T1. If this condition evaluates true, the Apigee will execute T2. If there's no condition, that effectively is a catch-all. So if none of the above conditions have evaluated true, then this flow with no condition will be executed. But what we saw in the error message was, let's go back to it, there are too many unconditional flow elements. And the line here is 65 and 5. So it's saying this one also has no condition. This will never execute. So this can't be executed. That's probably something you want to avoid. So to fix that, I would just remove that unconditional flow element. I can rerun the check, And you can see I fixed the problem, and I get 0 errors at that point. So that's really helpful. Apigeelint can kind of flag those things for you and point you to the exact line. So here's another one with an unreachable flow. This is similar, but not quite the same. So let me open that one. And this one is line 39. And we can see here I've got an unconditional flow, no condition, but it's at the very top. And then there's some conditional flows beneath that. And what Apigee is saying is, look, what Apigeelint is saying is, you've got an unconditional flow that is not the final one. There are others with conditionals on them, and all of those will be ignored. So that's probably something you want to avoid. That's going to be an error. To fix that, you can move this unconditional flow to the bottom, to the last flow, if it makes sense for you to do that. That's not always the right answer, but if I do that, I should be able to avoid that error. So that's another example. Let's look at a few more while we have our screencast going here. This one is something similar but a little bit different. It's an unreachable route rule. It's saying the proxy endpoint has a route rule that is unconditional but is not the final route rule. Okay, so what does that mean? Let's have another look. That is, I think, line 66. So this route rule has no condition, and like flows, route rules can have conditions, and like flows, when there's no condition, that will be the executed route rule, and no other route rules will be evaluated afterwards. So it looks like we've got misordering here, or there's some other logic mistake in how we want to do the routing. This condition here will never be evaluated. In order to fix this, I'd need to reorder these so that the no condition route rule, effectively a catch-all, would be at the bottom, and then I can avoid that error. All right, so that's route rules. We got a few more, which I'll show you. This is another one that can be somewhat common. If you've got a target endpoint that is, a route rule that refers to a target endpoint that does not exist in the API proxy. So that's going to be an error. Your proxy will not deploy, it will not run if it has that problem. Basically, I just have, looks to me like I have a mix-up on the naming. Target -1 with lowercase is the name that I used on the target endpoint, but I used uppercase target with no dash 1 as the name in the route rule, and that's the source of the confusion. So if I use in the route rule this name, that problem would go away. I won't show you fixing that one because you can probably understand that one. This is an interesting one. This is about assign message hygiene. So really common problem I see with people when they run their when they configure their assign message is this kind of thing. I see an assign to with no text element. So this is effectively a no-op. This does nothing. It's as if you don't have an assign to. I think what people want often is to do something like this, request. So they want to assign to the request message or to response, in which case you would have to change this to response. Or you could do something like this, keep it simpler. Assign to request, assign to response. You know, any of those are fine. This doesn't provide a message in the text element. It's as if you have this, and there's nothing here. There's nothing right here, and that means you're not specifying a message. So this is not a useful thing. It's kind of a thing that gets copied around. A lot of people have this in their assign message policies, but this is a meaningless line. So that's a bit of hygiene in your policy. It won't cause it to be unexecuted, but it is meaningless, and so it's flagged as a warning by Apigeelint. To fix that, just remove it or replace it with something like that. If I save that and rerun, I should have that problem fixed. Okay, so that's assign message. And the last thing I want to show you is naming conventions. Apigeelint is opinionated about how you name your policies. I've got a proxy here that has 2 policies that do not conform to the Apigeelint prescribed naming conventions. Specifically, Apigeelint looks for prefixes in policy names, like for assign message, AM dash. So this one, this policy name is inject-proxy-revision-header, but there is no prefix, and that is not a standard prefix for the assign message policy. So Apigeelint is saying, hey, that doesn't look like a standard name. Similar, this policy name is unknown request, but it is a raise fault policy. So Apigeelint is saying, you know what, it'd be better if you use the prefix like rf-unknown request for your policy name. That would avoid this warning. The reason Apigeelint suggests using that naming convention is just because it makes it easier to navigate through the API proxy configuration for you in the future or for other readers in the future, so they can understand what are the policy types, what's going on, without having to open up each policy file to see what's in there. So that's a little hint, and Apigeelint allows you to kind of enforce that naming convention, if you like. Okay, I hope I've given you a really good tour of Apigeelint. It's handy as you develop API proxies. It's also handy to put in your CI/CD. Some of you may be thinking, well, I already got my proxies in Apigee. How would I use Apigeelint for that? My proxy configurations are up in the cloud. They're in my Apigee organization. I've got this long list of API proxies. How would I analyze those? There is no button inside the user interface to run Apigeelint. However, there may be a way for you to automate the analysis of different API proxies just from the command line using the Apigee API. So as an example, I have a short script that will fetch and unzip a proxy from Apigee X. So what I need to do is set the Apigee token. So I'm going to do that. Let's see. Export Apigee token. And where do I get a token? That's going to be gcloud auth print access token. That's my own access token for Google Cloud. My project is Infinite Epic. I'll set that, and then I should be able to fetch and unzip proxy by specifying the proxy name, which was this thing. Let's just look at that one. So I'll paste that in as the first argument. And what it's saying is, oh, we got it, and we've unzipped it. So now if I do recursive ls on that, I can see that's got the exploded API proxy bundle. It's got all my policies. It's got my proxy endpoint, my target endpoints, and so on. So let's run Apigeelint on that. We will use that directory, the unzipped directory, and I need to specify the API proxy directory. And sure enough, I've got warnings there. So this one is an unreferenced resource, which I did not know about. Forgot about that. So this is some JavaScript that I have in my API proxy that is just not attached to anything. And it's also given me a warning about an extract variables where I don't have a condition checking for the content to see if the content is non-null. Good, helpful hygiene things that Apigeelint is flagging for me in an API proxy that I just downloaded from Apigee X. Hey, I hope this has been helpful. Let me know if you've got any questions on any of this. You can put questions in the YouTube comments, or if you like, you can just go to the Apigeelint repo. It's github.com/apigee/apigeelint. You can go get the code for yourself or install it with npm and start linting your API proxies. Hope this will make life a lot simpler for you as you proceed on your Apigee journey. Till next time, keep it digital.